Witchcraft with me, Dawn the Kitchen Witch. I'm really excited because today we're doing our first recording of our third, yes, third season of this podcast, which is kind of crazy. And to kick things off this season, we have the incredible Raechel Henderson. Raechel Henderson is a pagan and a witch following an eclectic and independent path. And you might have seen some of her work in almanacs and calendars from Llewellyn, as well as her two other books, So Witchery and the Secret of Lemon and Rosemary, which is a favorite, by the way. Raechel is a dual class seamstress shield maiden and has been sewing professionally since 2008. And she blogs about magic, creativity, and living by your own patterns. Raechel, welcome to the show. I'm happy to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited that you're here because many reasons, the least of which is that I can see you have cute little gnomes behind you, and that's exciting. For I have my own gnome collection. Well, to be fair, it's not mine; it's my husband's.
Oh,
Is a little obsessed with his gnomes, but it's really cool to have you here, and thanks for kicking off our third season.
awesome. I am super excited to be here. I uh, am a big fan and I follow you on Instagram, and so this is exciting for me.
Just follow me on Instagram. I'm just such a nerd about like anything social media. I'm such a nerd about like I really don't know what the fuck I'm doing. So the fact that you're saying that you follow me, I'm like, oh my God. Thank you. Thank you.
I feel the same way about my social media too. Like it's you throw stuff out there and you hope that it connects and
Right?
just sit there and occasionally like obsess over your likes and follows and then you're like, calm down. It's
Yes.
not the end of the world.
Yes. And you do a lot of blogging and you do a lot on your own website about like living a magical life, you know?
Yes.
Was there anything that was like especially recently since your new book came out, and we're going to talk about that as we get like further on, but like what's the most popular things that people are looking at that you talk about?
I get a lot of people who are interested in because I call myself a witch crafter. And so I get a lot of people who are very interested in the crafting portion. I do a lot of tutorials and patterns and the like, just to kind of help people, to give people a place to start maybe thinking about their magical journey when it comes to crafting or to sewing or to any kind of working with your hands to make something. And then but a lot of times people just need a pattern to follow or instructions to follow before they can decide to go out on their own and try their own thing. So that's what I get most people looking at is just the tutorials. I made this goofy little um, tutorial on how to make a charm oracle using the butter cookie tins that
Yeah.
never have butter cookies in them.
Yeah,
They
it's
always have
always like
sewing
sewing
supplies in them.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. I put together a tutorial that shows you how to make a charm casting oracle using that and using like little sewing charms, and then you can cast them onto the mat that's in the tin and do divination that way, and that tends to
So
be fairly
cool.
popular.
That's so what a cool idea. So I've got to know like I love backstory, I love origin story, and our listeners love to learn about like the journey into how you got here, right? So like were you always sewing in your life? Were you always doing witchcraft? Were you always into crafts? How did you get introduced to the crafting part of things? And then likewise, how did you get introduced into witchcraft?
I come from a family of makers, so all of like my
Mm,
grandmother, she always sewed. She'd make clothes and toys for the kids. She was big into like canning. They had, a acre worth of land that half of it was an orchard and a garden. So she always was canning and preserving. My mother is a sewer and a knitter and a crocheter. My aunts all sewed and made stuff. A lot of my uncles would do stuff as well, woodworking and the like. So I came from just this environment where it was kind of expected to make stuff, not just stuff for around the house, but to like mend and to fix things and not really go out and buy new.
Wow.
Uh, so that was my environment that I grew up in. And I came to witchcraft. I always had a witchy feeling, but like many, I think, in my generation, I grew up Baptist
Oh.
and discovered witchcraft like when I went to college
Hmm.
and discovered Cunningham. I mean, I think
I
that was
mean,
like
yeah.
the gateway,
Yeah.
living Wicca, and
Yeah.
that is like your gateway into, oh, there's something more. This resonates with me. This
Sure.
feels more of my path. Um, and ever since then, that was back in 1995, 96. And ever since then, I have just been, I've been a witch. Uh, I was a baby witch, so it was like little stuff to begin with. I didn't
Yeah.
fully embrace it until about 2008 when I got divorced, and that's when the witchcraft and the sewing came together, because that was 2008 when you had the big market crash and
Yeah.
everything, and I had a 4-year-old daughter, and I had been out of work, out of the job market since she was born. So I was like, there's no jobs. I have a 4-year-old who I have to be there for, and childcare is
Right.
expensive.
Right.
So what I started doing is, at the time, I had been LARPing, which is live action role play.
Yes.
Uh,
Explain what the LARP is, for example, to our listeners that aren't like that wouldn't maybe know what a LARP is. I don't think we've had an open LARPer on this show, which is interesting because I used to LARP in college. I don't anymore. I've turned my LARPs into my reality, but that's besides the point. But yes, explain that little sidebar.
Live action role playing, it's like, if people are familiar with D&D, you dress up as your character and you act your character out. We also call it, it's like um theater, where you have a character, you have a role to play, and then you interact with other people. I was LARPing with a group of friends, and I had been making costuming for
Yeah.
them, because as soon as they were like, "Oh my goodness, you sew? Can you sew for me?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, I can do that."
Yes.
Uh, and so what I did is I went and bought a bunch of fabric and made a bunch of like scarves and some costuming stuff, bits and bobs. And then I went with my friends to a convention. And it was my last $200 for the room. And I sold out of nearly everything. And so I was able not only to pay for the trip, but I came back with money. And I was like, oh, I could do this.
Hmm.
And so that's what I did for many years, is I would sew for a living. And as I was sewing, I started to integrate my magic. So it started off with drawing sigils on my sewing machine. Like, I've got to get this stuff done. I need focus. I need this energy.
Wow.
I would take my sewing pins, you have pins with the colored heads. So I would use pins with green, so that I'm like, okay, let's get this money and abundance manifestation
Wow.
into my into the stuff I'm making, so that when I go to these events, people are like, yes, I want to buy this. I made a little jar of like mint and rice and coins that I keep in my booth, like right behind it, that I'm like, every once in a while I take and I shake, and I'm like, all right, let's bring this prosperity here. Let's get
Hmm.
these customers here.
Yep.
And so it was just naturally for a natural progression for me to be like, I'm sewing, I'm making a living, this is what I'm doing. How do I incorporate my magic into it?
That is so awesome. And I'm sure there's so much more to the development and how that happened. But what a cool concept. And I think what makes this really unique is that most of us do these types of things where we take our witchcraft, we take our beliefs, we take our magical practices, and we put them in our everyday things, and we don't even realize we're doing it on a conscious level. And what you've done that's different is you've said, no, I'm consciously going to carry a prosperity spell with me when I'm going to sell my stuff. I'm consciously going to use color magic and associative energy work with colors of the pins to create prosperity magic or protection magic or whatever it is that I'm making for someone. I very much do a similar thing with the foods I make and the products that we make. And then it answer this question. It started out as you're doing all that for you, but then as you're making these things for others, now you're imbuing these items with that energy for other people. Is that
Oh, yeah.
intentional or did that just
Oh,
sort of happen
absolutely.
accidentally?
It absolutely became intentional. Like, I will now, I would make clothes for my daughter and then later my husband and my son. And when I'm doing that, I am absolutely being intentional with my color choices, my thread choices. I do little stitching and I'll stitch little runes and the like into the
Mhm.
hems of clothing that I make for them. Um, when I was making costuming, because I've since transitioned, I'm now writing full time as opposed to sewing for payment. But when I was doing making costumes for people and the like, I would, as I'm creating that, I'm keeping in mind who is their character like, who are they like, what is it that they want to express, and
Mhm.
how can I make sure that that is just embedded in this piece of clothing that I'm making for them.
So now you're not doing that for a living anymore because you're being a professional witch now, right? And you're out in the world and you're writing about witchcraft and you're teaching others about witchcraft. Do you still sew for yourself, sew for your family, sew for friends and incorporate your magic in it? Or is that like that's a peace of mind thing that you're doing now that is not as magically active?
Oh no, I still absolutely include magic in that when I'm making, like, I just made a dress for myself, and as I was doing that, I'm like, I'm gonna use yellow-headed pins because this makes me happy, and I want to make sure every time I wear this dress, I'm gonna feel happy.
Oh,
Um,
that's
yeah,
fantastic.
I it's again, it's an environmental thing, and it's so it just comes so naturally to me now that it feels weird not to think
Mhm.
about the stuff I'm making magically.
And so obviously that intentionality that and again I find this in my own practice as well because I am a kitchen witch and it's really everything, it's kind of like, oh yeah, the intentionality and the food and the cooking and the food choices and the color of the food and the season of the food and all of that. And then I find that that expands out to the pots and pans I choose to use, the how I decorate the living room that is adjacent to the kitchen and these items that I choose to put in my home and when I'm inviting people. So it literally it encompasses everything. And I love these tactile, practical practices of magic.
Oh, yeah. And that's one of the things that I encourage people, or I try to encourage in my books, is this idea of not viewing magic as something separate, that it is part to make it part of your life. That in order to live magically, viewing things through a lens of how do I make anything that I do, how do I purposely make it magical? Like my book, The Scent of Lemon Rosemary, which
Is
has been
brilliant,
described.
by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Brilliant.
It got described by one person as a witchy home economics book. And I love that
Mhm.
because the idea in there was, okay, nobody likes cleaning, nobody likes doing chores. I mean, it's something that has to be done. So if we have to do it, why not make it part of our magical practice?
Agree.
We're not just sweeping the floor, we're sweeping out negative energy. We're not just cleaning dishes, we are cleaning off uh, harmful energies or stale energies, and we're bringing in our love and abundance and familial warmth into these dishes so that when we set our table, there's like this base layer of just happiness and togetherness, that then when you're doing your kitchen witchery, you add that into it,
Right.
and it's adding these layers so that you have a home that is comfortable and comforting.
And
And
creating
it's,
space to make a sanctuary in the home by
yeah,
clearing out the crap and the crud and the energetic residue that you don't want there anymore.
yeah. And I've had people respond with this idea, to this idea, going, I never thought of it that way, and
Hmm.
saying, you know what, this actually makes it easier for me to then tackle those chores that I've been putting off, because I'm switching how I view them.
Absolutely. That click in the mind, when I'm teaching a class, I'll say very similar, the same thing, like, okay, I use hand washing as a way, as a mini ritual to cleanse me before I start cooking something. Now everybody washes their hands before they cook, and if they don't, they should, but please God do that. But by washing your hands mindfully, which I think a lot of folks got very mindful of washing their hands during COVID. But even before that, I was like, okay, I'm going to say a mantra, or I'm going to recite some sort of cleansing, recitation, just to be able to say, I'm doing this to cleanse away my day, any negativity that I'm holding, before I create a meal that's going to nourish body and spirit, and using that as a ritual. And I'll have people say to me, I never thought about it like that before. And that the light switch goes on. And I think what your work does is expanding it out of the kitchen, not just into the home, but into wherever you are, because you're taking it into crafting, and you're taking it into things that bring people joy and happiness in hobbies, but also in the practical sense of, I'm mending socks because XYZ, in a
Mhm.
way that is also magical. Like,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
And I think that once people start thinking that way, it just becomes easier to continue to incorporate that in your life and in different aspects of your life. And then all of a sudden, you're finding meaning, and
Mm,
there's mindfulness and meaning into everything that you're doing, and
mm.
even the most grimiest of chores. Look, how can you cleanse yourself? How can you take a cleansing shower if your shower is gross? So,
Seriously.
so by having that ritual of, I am cleaning my bathroom because this is where I cleanse myself. And I find that it makes your magic more powerful,
Yeah.
because you're cleansing yourself now in an area that is clean, and you
Listen,
feel,
everybody loves that, right? Like, I one of my favorite things in the world is, like, clean the shower, shave my legs, get into fresh sheets. Like, what
yep,
what feels better than getting yourself fully relaxed, or in a meditative state, or in a ritual state, in a space where there's nothing you going, oh, that has to get done. Oh, the mundaneness of the everyday tasks, and we make them magical through witchcraft.
exactly, absolutely.
Wow. So awesome to talk to somebody who is literally living that at every moment. And tell me how you feel about this. Oftentimes people look at this kind of craft as lesser magic, because it's not esoteric, it's not occultism, it's not psychic, it's not all of these things that happen in the spirit realm. It's stuff that happens right here. You could touch it and hold it. And there are schools of people that think this is lesser magic. That's not my opinion. My opinion is this is the real magic, because we do it every day. And it allows us to be more open to those other types of spiritual workings, because we are living our magic every day. What's your take on that?
I That's all rooted in sexism and capitalism.
Fuck yeah, it is. Preach.
Yeah. I mean, look at who, you know, if you look at the distinction between arts and crafts and fine art, it's the same thing. It's this idea of who's doing it. most arts and crafts, most kitchen witchery, most of this kind of household witchery, green witchery, cottage witchery is done by women. Whereas you will see for most of the esoteric, high ritual, occulty magic tends to be, or at least be viewed as being done by men. And so when you have that kind of distinction, it's sexism, pure and simple. And then you get capitalism into the mix where it doesn't see value in the all of the stuff that goes into the day to day living, which is hilarious because nothing nobody is going to nothing's going to stop working if a CEO takes the day off and goes play golf.
Mm-hmm.
But if all the people underneath that, if the janitors don't show up, if the service people don't show up, then everything grinds to halt
Mm-hmm.
because all of these little things, all of these daily maintenance things are highly important. But because they have to be done all the time, because they are done by people who are of a lower economic status and people, of women and people of color, it gets looked down on. And that's where we're at right now. We're at this huge junction where capitalism and sexism have kind of put everything in a hierarchy.
Mm.
And so, yeah, our crafting, doing sewing and the like and fixing stuff or cooking a meal, cleaning a house are all viewed as worthless. And yet, uh, there is this underlying understanding that they're not worthless.
Absolutely. I mean, look at what happened during the pandemic. Who was essential, right?
Right.
Food was essential, transportation, sanitation. These things were essential for society to keep moving. Likewise, the cottage witch, the kitchen witch, the crafting witch is essential for magics in the home and
Yeah.
the raising of families and the tying together of communities and the circles of people coming together to celebrate beliefs. This happens in everyday ways, not in like you said, like the you used a term and now it's escaping me, but these things happen in every small everyday ways that are very important to the fabric of our beings as humans, as well as the fabric of our being as witches and pagans, you
Yeah.
know?
Oh, absolutely. And the issue is that if we can peel away that sexism, if we can peel away the capitalist desire to codify and put everything in a hierarchy, then we get to the point of magic is very personal.
Mm,
And the magic that I do may not work for somebody else.
right,
And so for some people, the occulty, esoteric, much more intellectual, non-physical magic is what works for them.
right.
For others, it's, magic doesn't work for them unless they're doing something in the kitchen. And I really wish we could get to a point where we view it as that, where it's okay, that doesn't work for me, but it works for you, and that's all
Yeah.
that matters.
And you wouldn't
Uh,
think in pagan circles and witchcraft circles that these would be conversations that we'd have because we are known to be accepting and loving and everybody can do their own thing. But these conversations still do exist within our communities. And there's a little bit of like unspoken, like, oh, looking down my nose at you or this, or, well, I'm doing that, or that we have in our home, there's that, oh, this guy's more we have a conversation about like, oh, this person is, more pagan than thou, like, because I'm a better pagan than you. Fuck you. We're all individual. And that's half of the reason why most of us, found witchcraft was because of that feeling of being isolated or othered from, more mainstream spiritual and religious organizations. So it's crazy to think that there is still an underlying sense of misogyny or especially in something or capitalism, especially in something that tends to be very female oriented, and very accepting and loving, love and light. Well, you wouldn't think that we would have that conversation, but I agree with everything that you said. People don't send us fucking letters. This is just a conversation. But we are right. Like, don't get angry. We're not saying you, but in general, there can be a mentality. I've experienced it where it's like, oh, you're a kitchen witch, and like, well, can you do this and can you do that? And well, I do this big ritual, high magic here, and I'm like, yeah, I can do that, but this is how I choose. And this is where I feel the most connected to my guides, to the energies that I'm working with. Um, I'm sorry. I know I just got on a fucking soapbox, but like, at what point did you kind of have these realizations about witchcrafting and this idea of rooting into magic in this way, in these everyday ways, right? Because obviously from your sewing, but inside the household, and how did that evolve for you? Like, did you
Um,
notice that from growing up that everything had a purpose and everything had a meaning?
no, growing up, again, I was raised Baptist, and it was very much, you go to church on Sunday, and that's when you do your religious stuff, and it didn't really, it didn't really relate for the rest of the week. Um, Really, for me, it started off with when I got together with my ex. I was very young. I was 19, and I moved. I had had a really bad time in college. I ended up moving from Wyoming to Chicago to be with him, and it was not a good relationship. It was he was abusive, and I spent a lot of time feeling unsafe in my home.
Mm,
And then I ended up literally losing my home around 2018, which was 10 years after I had gotten divorced. I'd weathered a lot, um, but home didn't always feel safe. And then I was at the time I was working with Hestia, or I had known about Hestia, who is the Greek goddess of the hearth. And she's so much more than that. But when I first got introduced to her back in 1999, I was like, oh, this this feels good. This makes sense. This is a safe feeling. And for the longest time, I didn't have anything to do with Hestia. I was aware of her, but she was kind of on the sidelines, and she was kind of like, you know what, you do you, get it out of your system. I'll be here when you're ready.
right.
And when we lost the house, we were homeless for about 6 weeks before we got into someplace. And about that time, I was like, okay, you know what, Hestia, I am ready to uh, make this place a safe place, not only for me, but for my family, for
Yeah.
my kiddos, and for my husband and our cats. And so I started working with her. And again, it was magic goes in my sewing. If I'm going to be making it house a safe place, I'm going to be doing working magic for that. And then, and we got into the house in 2018, 20, and right at the end of 28, or around 2019, and 2019, COVID hit. And so it was a whole bunch of us in a house, because we had two housemates at the time, with their cat. And I was like, okay, we absolutely have to do something. We
Wow.
have to make this place safe and feel comfortable.
Wow.
And I think a lot of other people, you had this recognition that a lot of people didn't spend time at their homes
Mm,
before.
yeah.
And once you got into the home, you're like, I don't feel comfortable here because I've never made the effort to make it comfortable because I've always been out of it.
Yeah.
Um, so for me, it just again came naturally to turn to my magic to add an extra layer of, along with the nesting and getting, the pillows and the couches and the, all the comforting stuff and the
Yeah.
hot chocolate and the mugs and stuff. I made sure to energetically and magically make it a safe space for all of us.
You are so really one of the most intuitive witches I've ever spoken to, where you have this sort of like instinct around your craft and how to use it. And you're just like, I didn't even think about it. It just is like as easy and as instinctual as breathing. You're like, oh well, yeah, obviously it's time to call up Hestia. Oh yeah, obviously it's time for me to do this. And I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, but you almost sound like, without someone shining a light on saying, hey, that's intentional witchcraft, you're just like, yeah, it's just life, it's just what you do, like there's nothing, right? Like it is pretty
Yeah.
remarkable, what you're doing there, Raechel, and that the intuition you have to do what you're doing at these stages it's really remarkable.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, no, it doesn't occur to me that that's any different. And I think that everybody can do this. I really do.
Yes.
I think that it's getting over that first hump of being intentional and being mindful. And like any other habit, it takes some time. But I really do believe that people can um, get to the point where it comes to them as easily as anything else, as easily as tying your shoes or riding a bike. It's just, you ride your bike, you have to balance, you have to look out for warning signs and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
You get to the point where you're like, okay, yeah, no, I, um, I'm feeling a little down and depressed right now. I'm going to take my meds, but I'm also going to perform a little ritual, do a
Hmm.
little, get myself some hot chocolate that I'm going to charge energetically with this uh,
Joy, yeah.
joy. Yeah, joy and calmness and release of anxiety and that and the like of
Yeah,
that.
I think that's amazing, and I'm really excited to talk with you more about this around your newest book, which is Natural Home Wheel of the Year, because then you're taking these practices and you're spreading them out throughout the year, the wheel of the year, different seasons, and how we practice this type of mindfulness in witchcraft in everyday life, going through the entire wheel. So let's take a quick break to hear from our sponsors. And then we come back, we're going to explore your new book because it's really exciting. We'll be right back with Raechel Henderson. We're back with Raechel Henderson. We're having a really interesting conversation today. I feel like we've been everywhere and I love it. I think it's a perfect way to start season 3. So awesome. So let's get into your brand new book. It was released December 2023, right? So
Yep.
just a little while ago. And it's called Natural Home Wheel of the Year. And it's
Yes.
awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Really, because you're taking, and I'm very seasonal in my craft, right? So I do the things that you're talking about. I am doing different rituals, cooking different recipes, cleaning my house with different scents throughout the different right now I have like a spiced apple cleaner that I use in the winter time, and I'm out of it. So I'm like using the lavender and I'm like, this doesn't feel right because it's not springtime yet, So I completely 150% know where you're coming from. So talk to us about like why this book and why now? Like what brought this into the world?
Um, it's kind of it started with my last book, The Scent of Lemon and Rosemary, where I had a chapter talking about the Wheel of the Year and creating your own magical calendar, creating your own personal calendar of events and the like. And I know that oftentimes there are witches who, especially when they're new to the path, who are like, okay, so what is this Wheel of the Year? How do you celebrate it? What do you do? And I'm a big fan of the Wheel of the Year. I live my life uh, by it. I celebrate all the Sabbats. We don't do Christmas. We do the winter solstice
Yep.
with the kids and everything. Um, and I like it because it's this cycle that breaks up the year so that it doesn't move as fast. Like
Mm,
how it sometimes feels that like everything's going at a breakneck speed.
mm-hmm.
And then for those times where it seems to be dragging out forever, you have something to look forward to. I
Yeah.
love the idea of having these regular celebrations because really like in the especially the American calendar, you've got nothing going on until you've got Easter and then nothing going on, and then
Yep.
like 4th of July and then nothing going on, and then it's Halloween and Thanksgiving and Christmas
Yes.
all at once.
Yes.
It's really disjointed.
Agreed.
And so the point of the book is to encourage people to view time in a little differently and to give them a blueprint to start celebrating these Sabbaths, to start uh, honoring and observing the wheel of the year. And again, doing that thing where it brings more meaning into your life and it allows you to magically
Hmm.
uh, be mindful and throw meaning into what you're doing. I mean, you're going to do it anyway. You might as well make it magical.
I feel like living by the wheel of the year allows you to plug in a little bit to the rhythms of what's happening around you. So again, you're out in Wyoming, I'm out here in New Hampshire, so I'm in New England, and it's very cold. And even though in bulk, February, it's supposed to be the return, and we're celebrating the light and all of those things, and it's the beginning of the beginning, right? In bulk being the beginning of spring, and everything's still covered in 18 feet of snow, and we're all freezing our asses off here.
Yep.
But I go, well, if you pay attention at in bulk, the nights start to get a little shorter and the days start to get a little bit longer. And oh, look, yeah, that we are seeing that rhythm and we are seeing that change. And then I can mark that emotionally, spiritually, and mentally by what's happening outside, but also by the way I am marking that in my own home and in my own practice. Right. So I have my own tradition where I make jalapeno cornbread for in bulk every year. Right. So it's all fire
Awesome.
energy. It's all cycles. It's all about, the cycles returning and the sun and all of that. And that's a tradition. And just the other day, my husband was like, oh, you're making chili. Are you going to make cornbread? And I was like, no, we don't make that till in bulk. Well, of course, no, that's what you, so there's a specialness that also comes when that feels like you said, like, it's not, Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas. It's, oh, look, we have something special. Every six
Yeah.
weeks, I have something special. Right.
Yeah. And that tapping into the natural cycle helps get us out of, again, this very regimented calendar system
Mm-hmm.
that takes us away from nature,
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't allow us to have that connection. Whereas
Right.
with the wheel of the year, you're tapping into the energies of the world around you and the energies of the earth. And like for our family, it's in bulk is where we're like making sure that we put out food for the animals because this is the harshest part of the year
Yeah.
for them and they can't find food. We're celebrating the fact that yeah, it's starting to light up. We're turning off all the lights and we're lighting candles to
Mm-hmm.
represent that the light is coming back.
Mm-hmm.
um it's this, I think that we crave connection as human beings,
Yeah.
and not only with other human beings but with the world around us, and that's
Yes.
what the wheel of the year allows us to do.
Yes. So kind of a side note, can you settle a little bit of an argument for me?
I could
I
try.
Okay, so and my partner, my husband, he's not here to defend himself, so I apologize to him in advance. But we have an ongoing sort of silly argument where I say I'm just a good witch because I'm following the wheel of the year. So I think the Yule decorations should go up on November 1st. Right? Okay, so Samhain is the new year and it's the beginning of winter. So the Yule decorations should go up November 1st and they should come down February 1st as we roll into Imbolc and then into the spring season. Listen, I don't make the rules. I'm just saying, as a good witch, right? My fall decorations, they should go up in August at Lammas. That's the last harvest. That's what we should, all right. I mean, that's what we should, the first harvest, that's what we should be doing. Celebrating the harvest season happens in August. I'm just saying, oh, the fall decorations should go. Agree or
As
disagree?
I feel that this falls under the category of technically correct, which according to Futurama is the best kind of correct. Um, my only disagreement is because I love Thanksgiving.
Mm,
Thanksgiving is my holiday.
mm-hmm,
Uh,
mm-hmm.
because and frankly, if we could as a culture shift it to like Mabon,
Which it should
I would be,
be.
which it should be, I would totally be all over that because the reason I love Thanksgiving is it is 4 days of being with your loved ones, eating, and not doing much of anything else. Like
Yes.
I have a huge like there is I'm a cruise ship director once we hit Thanksgiving.
I love it
Um
so much.
where I have like this is what we make and this is what we eat and this is what we do. Um and the only reason that it's Thanksgiving for me is just because that's when we as an American culture have agreed that you can
Yeah.
have those days off. I would love it if, we could shift that so I could ensure that I had my family all had the same days off for Mabon. We do it then.
Yeah.
But
Agreed.
yes,
Agreed.
technically, you are technically correct there with the.
I win.
Although I will point out that if you're putting your Yule decorations up uh, in November to go through Yule, then once Yule hits, you're supposed to then be putting your Imbolc decorations up.
Well, I'll take the tree down, but I leave everything else up. I
I
leave everything else up. And I literally just said this to somebody else the other day. I was like, listen, my tree is still up. I didn't really get to enjoy the the Yule celebration. By the time this airs, I promise I will have taken it down. But right now, at the recording of this, it's early January, and my tree and all my holiday stuff is still up. But I didn't really get to enjoy the holidays because I had a very busy work season. And so I'm like, well, I'm damn it, I'm gonna celebrate Yuletide until I get sick of it. That's just that's just
I'm
what
a
I'm gonna
bad
do.
witch. I'm a bad witch because I still have my fall altar up, but that's mostly because I spent the last I've spent the last month and a half working on my fourth book, which requires me to sew a whole bunch of garments.
See?
So our house is an absolute mess. There is fabric and thread everywhere. I am lucky that my family is so patient and understanding and, okay with having to move piles of fabric to get to stuff.
Yes.
Uh,
And they don't care. The only person who cares is you. Like, it's the
yeah,
same thing with me. I'm the only person who cares. Like, who's going to judge me that my tree is up? Nobody. You know why? Me and my husband are the only people that live here. There's nobody, and nobody's coming here. So, like, it's just the only people. If I like it, God damn it, I'm going to enjoy it. But thank you for
that's
settling that argument for me. I'm going to tell him. I'm
oh
going to
great.
tell him, oh, a
I'm
witch
gonna
that
get an
knows
email
better.
from your I'm gonna get an email from your husband saying, "Hey now."
Well, it's an ongoing joke. And then this year he was like, babe, if the lights make you happy, we're just gonna keep the lights up as long as you want them. And I'm like, thank
Oh,
you. I love you so much.
what a
But
good husband.
he's the best. But I digress. So we are running out of time. So there's still a couple of things that I want to chat with you about. Um, especially in this book. One of the things that you focus on in the book is obviously the rituals and working through the wheel of the year and recipes and all these great little ways of celebrating that you have. But something that's sort of a theme throughout the book is being eco-friendly.
Yes.
And I want to know why that's important to you and why you think it should be important to more witches.
It's important to me because while uh as horrible as it is to say, individual contributions are not going to solve the climate crisis. That really is on the heads of these big corporations. Um, but there's also this idea of personal responsibility. And so, yes, I feel like by being eco friendly, I'm showing respect to the earth.
Mhm.
And also, I'm poor. I am poor, and so having, I mean, I write, and writers are not rich. At least most of them aren't.
Unless you're Stephen
And
King, writers
yeah,
are
there
not
we go.
rich. People don't make a lot of money from writing books right now.
It's true. We do it for the love.
That is right.
Uh, and so I have learned with my crafting to make do and find ways of getting materials from unexpected places. And I think that encouraging people to think differently
Mm,
in that respect helps them work magically. Because then again, you aren't looking at things straight on, and taking things at face value, which as witches, we don't do.
mhm.
We look beyond. And so
Ooh,
I believe that
yeah.
witches should be eco friendly because it shows respect to the earth. It shows respect to the genus loci of your area. It shows that you are taking seriously our responsibility to be custodians of this planet. Um, but I also think that it helps people to exercise that part of their brain that looks at things differently, that then fuels their magic.
I love that so much, and I really feel like one of the themes throughout everything we've talked about tonight, um, is this idea of connectivity and connecting witchcraft to crafting, connecting your practice to the wheel of the year, connecting and then connecting to others. And I think that being eco-friendly as a witch, as a pagan is not something that's really talked about in a lot of circles. I think maybe it's taken for granted a little bit. And I think it's another way that we can stay connected, connected to our communities, connected to earth, and wherever you are on the planet, you're going to have, different plants, different animals, different bugs, different food that the earth is giving you. And I think that's really important. And I wanted to also touch on what you said about, you know, that resourcefulness of saying, hey, maybe right now I don't have a lot of money, or maybe right now, I'm saving, or I don't have extraneous cash to just, blow on, oh, I found this fancy rock. Yeah, we'd all love to go spend $5 on a rock all the time, but that's not always the reality for people. Sometimes that $5 has got to feed your kid or put gas in your car. But when you're looking at witchcraft from a more economical and ecological caring standpoint, you realize you can really have connectivity on different levels. And so I think that's a really important thing that you're talking about that other people aren't talking about. So thank you for that.
Oh, yeah, I just feel like there's this idea that there is uh, a bar or a floor, that a certain amount of money that you have to spend to be a witch. Like there is all
Yeah.
this commercialism around it now,
Yeah.
so that people think they need to have the crystals and the incenses and all of
Mm.
this, the journal and the wand and the cloak and all of that. And I'm trying to encourage people to uh, do it themselves because it's going to be more meaningful, and
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be perfect. I think a lot of people get caught up on this idea that it has to be perfect,
Mm.
and I'm telling you, it doesn't have to be perfect because the imperfections are what are going to make it unique to you.
So wonderful. So fantastic. Raechel Henderson, you're just a delight. And that was really what really, I mean, you made so many great points. I'm really happy that you came on the show tonight. Tell us, where can we buy all of your books, especially the newest one, Natural Home Wheel of the Year? Where can we find them? Where can we follow you online? How do we reach you and stalk you online? How do we do that?
Well, if you want to stalk me online, I'm mostly on Instagram, which is idiorhythmic, IDIORHYTHMIC.
Mhm.
That's the word that means living by one's life patterns. You can find me on Instagram there. All of my books are available. You can get them direct from the publisher, Llewellyn. You can get them online. The best place to get them is to go to your local occult bookstore or local occult shop and order it through them, because then you're not only supporting the local economy, but you're also, keeping money
In the
uh,
community.
in the community. But yeah, they're available in those different places. and I'm trying to get to some events where I'll be that I'm working on getting so to some events so that I can interact with people and get signed books for them and all of that. That's still up in the air.
Amazing. Amazing. Fantastic. Well, so everybody go out and buy this book, Natural Home Wheel of the Year through Llewellyn or at your local bookstores. Really, it's really good. It's really fantastic. And the scent of lemon and rosemary also is one of my favorites. So, buy them both because she's amazing. Um, last question before I let you go, and I ask this to
Sure.
every guest, which is going to be a little difficult for you because you already do a lot of kitchen witchy stuff. But this is what I ask everybody. So I hope you're ready. If you could have me cook you one magical meal as a kitchen witch, what would it be and why?
Oh, um, I am a big fan of hot chocolate. Like,
Yeah.
I don't drink coffee. I don't like the taste of it, but hot chocolate is my thing, and that's what I just always feel it's a magical drink. And I think that you probably would bring a very interesting twist to it, and it would be very heartfelt and very warm and comforting, and I could just hold the mug and breathe in all of the chocolatey goodness. And
Just plain hot chocolate, or do you want to like infuse with orange peel and cinnamon or like
oh, if you want to get fancy with the spices, I'm totally cool with that.
right? Like I'm feeling like I would make you like a beautiful hot chocolate with a orange rind infusion and then like stir it with a cinnamon stick and like steam the milk like that. I feel like that is a hot chocolate that's worthy of you. Like I wouldn't just crack
Oh,
open a like Swiss Miss. Do you know what I mean? Like that
like
would be like
when I'm getting fancy with
sacrilege.
the hot chocolate, when I'm getting fancy with it, I'm throwing like a shot of peppermint schnapps in it. So that's my
Oh,
fanciness.
I
Uh,
mean, yeah.
yeah.
I mean,
So I
yeah.
what you're suggesting sounds really good.
I would, because like you gotta have the hearth and home vibes around that, that
Yeah.
the orange peel, the cinnamon, like a pinch of nutmeg. Like I even feel like I would put like a tiny little pinch of cardamom in there and just give you this
Mm.
aromatic, cocoa-y, almost like a Mexican hot chocolate sort of situation with all of these spices. And no one's ever asked me for hot chocolate before, so I
Oh,
love that. So people are like, you're Italian, I want lasagna, and I'm like. But cocoa, I love it. Raechel, thank you so much for being here. This was just fantastic. I hope you had as much fun as I did. Really, really wonderful to get to meet you and learn your story. I'm so grateful that you were here.
thank you so much for having me. This has been awesome.
Fantastic. I'm so glad. And until next time, everyone, I wish you all the blessings and so much gratitude.